200.
200, man. We really recently, last couple episodes, we talked about this 1,000-mile scooter ride we're going to go on. That's not what we're talking about in this episode. And I have pledged to myself to not say I've been really bad about in the last few episodes, mostly because it's been mostly me. Like, you've interacted some, but when it's just me, I a lot. But we're not talking about a scooter ride in this episode. We are talking about a journey. This journey that we've been on, that I started with my brother Drew on, would have been the end of March, last week of March, 2018. That was eight years ago now. 8 years ago, we did episode 1 of Burnham Podcast. And it was not good. It was okay. It was good for what it was. But so if you've just found the show, you're listening to episode 200. If you go all the way back to the very beginning, you see that Burnham Podcast starts with episode 2. So what happened was we recorded episode 1, or what would have been episode 1, and stuck it in the can. Like, there it is. It's good. I was tired. It had been a long day, and I was like, I'm going to upload this tomorrow or the next day. There was a day or two in between. And I got ready to go in and upload it, and the service that we were using had been bought by, I want to say it was IBM, to use as like a in-house recording like place to keep all their stuff. So I no longer had access to it. So I looked it up, and I was like, how do I get access to my stuff? I put it on there. It was free when I recorded the thing. It's kind of like Anchor, if you're familiar with Anchor, or Spotify for podcasters now. I went in there to find it, and I was like, you can't have it. And I was like, okay, well, how do I get it? I'm like, well, you could buy this subscription for $1,500. And I was like, that episode's just gone. So it's out there somewhere in the ether. If you work for IBM or whatever company, maybe you can dig it up. But I ain't gonna. So that's what happened to episode 2. But since then, man, we've recorded, this is 200 like numbered episode. So it's kind of like the UFC, right? Like, not every UFC is number 189 or whatever. It's just Fight Night or whatever it is. So we've done some of those. There have been 3 in what was called the sermon series. I did a Father's Day special with my dad at one point. So this really would be like episode 204.
There's a few unknown episodes.
Are there a couple other unnumbered? I did a Christmas thing one time that wasn't.
I think we have a few that never made it.
Oh yeah, no, there are
several that.
Are there 3 or 4 episodes that, for whatever different reasons, technical reasons?
Yeah, there was the whole episode with you and Drew where you did the whole thing without any mics.
Yes, I forgot to turn. One mic was on. I think it was Drew's.
Yep.
Mic was on and mine was not, so you only got half the or vice versa maybe. But there's only half the conversation on there. So that wasn't good. And then there was one where we did an episode about this big project that I was partnering with another guy with. And before the episode went to air, that partnership kind of broke apart and things changed. And so that episode just didn't matter anymore. There was one that we did with Pyle around the election. We did 2 episodes, and one of them was in the event that Trump won, and the other one was in the event that Kamala won. And we had played out this like apocalypse scenario where we were in a bunker. It was really cool, and I kind of wish we still had it to at least roll out. But we just assumed that the election results were going to take days and days and days, and then it was just going to be awful. But Trump wrapped it up in one night. So we didn't bother airing that one. But there have been a couple that had technical difficulties and different logistical things that just didn't get to go to air. So we would be at, I don't know, 206 or 7 now. But here we are, nonetheless, episode 200, which it's just insane to me. Because when I sat down and hit play on the first episode, I never was like, I'm going to do 200 episodes or I'm going to do 10,000 episodes. I was just going to do a podcast. And even at that, it was 2 years from the time I was like, hey, what's a podcast? I feel like I'm supposed to do a podcast, and I'm hearing about podcasts. This would have been like 2016, 15, 16, and people are talking about podcasting. what's this podcast? What is this? What is how does it work? What is it? And so I did this research and put it off and put it off and put it off. And finally I did one. And now I don't ever want to stop podcasting because it's just fantastic. But in that time, I was doing some math earlier, some counting, and there's a ton of Burnham Podcast episodes, especially before we went to video, where it was just me. And there have even been some, especially recently, there were some that were also just me, but so many of them early on were just me. Between probably episode 2021 and then into like the 90s, the high 90s, there were sporadic guests here and there. I had Andrew Denman on during that time, Tyler Ray, who's a fantastic apologist. We get into the ontological argument and different things. I had my buddy Scooter Allison, Dave Abernathy, guys that would come on here and there. I was doing topical stuff, and it was fun. I've enjoyed doing that both ways. And the more I get into this and trying to nail down guests and things, and it gets really hard sometimes because I don't have celebrities on here that are just, their agents aren't calling me to book shows, and I'm talking to guys and I really want this person to come on my podcast and talk about whatever it is they're into. Can you do it Tuesday? Well, I can't do it Tuesday. Well, I can't do it Tuesday, but I can do it Thursday, but Tango can't do it Thursday. So it turns into this scheduling thing because we all have day jobs and obligations and things, and it just doesn't always work out. But the ones that I have, there have been 59 guests, and a lot of them have been on more than once. My brother Drew has been in, I think, 30-some episodes. Chris Pyle was on 20-ish. And I think about like Keith Doucette has been on 3. Gerard Tucker, PJ Broom, Kip Buford, Dr. Shane Clements. They've all been on twice. James Manning's been on twice. Andrew Denman's been on, 4 or 5 times now, including a couple episodes where it was he and I and Chris Pyle in a panel kind of setting. And we had John Briggs stumbled into the middle of an episode a while back. So that was like his second appearance. He was on one before. Preston Christ has been on a couple. So we had a bunch of folks on, man. And it's never, I've always said my criteria for a guest was one, I had to be somebody I was interested in talking to. And then it was going to have to be somebody that I wasn't going to have to fight with or argue or like super. And not that I have never disagreed with a guest like we have, but not like, I don't want to have a debate. That's not what this show is. There's plenty of those. So I get people that I'm interested in talking to, and I hope that you're interested in listening to, because when I have these people, I want them to do the majority of the talking. And, I want them on because I want to hear what they've got to say about, whatever the subject matter is. And some of these folks, we've had fist fighters and gun shooters and doctors and pastors, and I've had a coach. Let's say I've had a basketball coach. I've had a couple of football coaches. If I ever had a baseball coach, I don't think I've ever had a baseball coach.
We've done an episode at a baseball stadium.
We did an episode at a baseball stadium. That's true, with Justin Franklin.
Yep. Who
was with the Rome Emperors at the time. Now he's with the famous Chattanooga Lookouts. Justin's climbing the ladder. That was a lot of fun recording. That proved how tough it was to record off site though, because that was not in the studio.
That was recorded in a sweet box that had the sun hitting us. Not my prettiest work. Fantastic episode though.
It was a great episode. It really was. Justin was great. So that's going to be one of my favorites, I think, just because of the circumstances. We got to record it in a baseball stadium. That was a lot of fun. It was called Touch 'Em All. I forget what number it was. I should know all these. I should have made that list. But yeah, 59 people, which is just, it's crazy to me because I'm not a great conversationalist. I don't think of myself that way, which is odd, as a podcaster, because this is a conversation. It's just kind of what this is. But I don't know. It's just been neat to talk to these people, especially people who have had, whatever their experience was. And sometimes we talked about, like with Keith Doucette, you were mentioning off air as one of your favorite episodes.
Yeah. That was one that was kind of more along the lines of like, learn from Keith about all these really, really, really cool things that he did, but it was also a show and tell episode where he brought in all these cool things. Stabby McWatchlight.
Stabby McWatchlight.
That is forever ingrained in my head, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he brought in mortar fragments.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, yeah, these are the things that our military paid for that almost killed me.
Yeah, the Iraq or the Taliban or whoever was firing these rockets at him.
Yeah.
And that was a unique thing because we talk about all kinds of stuff on here, and sometimes we talk about tragedy and death and things like that. Keith has the unique perspective of knowing that his life is over. I was thinking about this today when I was kind of putting this list together of stuff we were going to talk about. Keith is in a trench, in a ditch in Iraq. And if you listen to this episode, he tells this story and it's fantastic. A rocket, I guess, lands between his legs as he's sitting on his butt in this ditch. And in that moment, he knows his life is over. Like, that's it. When this mortar, like, everybody's smart enough to know that's a rocket and it just landed in my lap. So this is the end for me. So you had that moment, and it wasn't because he's still here. It didn't work out for the bad guys. But, he offered that unique perspective. And that's the thing that I think about when I think about our guests and what they've brought to the show. And you had like Ricky Robinson.
Yep.
Talked about the time he saved a guy's life. But there was some regret in there because the guy ended up being a real scumbag and committing some heinous crimes later. And now he wrestles with, like, was it beneficial for me to save that guy? And as tough as that is, and you think when you talk to people that have these experiences, like, you don't want to drudge that stuff back up again. I didn't know that was a thing. So it's not like I asked him about it. It was something he offered. I never would have wanted to do that. But the vulnerability in that, right, to come out and be able to say, well, I don't know if I should have saved this guy, if it was maybe something I shouldn't have done. But he had no way of knowing that in the moment. But I feel like it's a really cool thing that people are able to sit with me in this setting that we have and feel comfortable sharing a story like that, because I know that it's beneficial to somebody out there. And that's all I hope for when we hit record on one of these shows is that, and I've said it a lot of times recently, I hope that you're educated or that you're inspired or that, that you're getting something out of this. And it's not just me or my guest or producer Tango just shooting the breeze on here. And that's fun. We do that sometimes too. But that it's beneficial, that we're actually offering you something, for your investment of your time, because your time is your most valuable resource. And I don't underestimate that. Like, I don't take that for granted when we sit down here and do this. And there have been episodes that we've done where I thought, man, did we waste people's time with that? Like, was that a serious thing? And I don't think that's the majority of our episodes by any means, but that's a thing that I worry about. And I go, oh, was that the best use of our time or our listeners' time? Like, was that a good episode? Was it inspiring? Was it educational? Along those lines. Because I don't, we talked about grifting a couple episodes back. I don't want this to be a grift where I'm just hoping you guys show up and listen to an episode that's just full of nothing. Like, I don't want that for you guys as listeners, as viewers. Excuse me. But, man, I do feel like we've heard some really, like, compelling stories. I've had first responders on. I was thinking about this earlier, like the types of people I've had on. Like I said, we've had all the coaches. I've had a member of every branch of the military on at one time or another. Might not have been active. Some of them were.
Did we get Air Force?
Dominic Romano was in the Air Force.
Oh, there we go.
Daniel Reyes is in the Navy. Lyle Morris is a Marine. We had
was Army.
Keith's in the Army. I've had a few soldiers. Edgar Mills was on.
Edgar, Kobe.
Kobe Reeves. Bunch of guys. Bunch of cool stories. We've had some ladies too. We had some ladies on the show. We had
we have.
Christine Fogus, homeschool mom.
Yep.
That was a fun episode.
Another good one was your daughter.
Ayla May, yeah.
Ayla May was a fantastic one from a father-daughter perspective.
That was a lot of fun, yeah.
That was kind of a cool insight for a lot of the viewers, a lot of everybody.
Adeline Spears. We had Adeline Spears on.
We did have Adeline Weather Watch.
Adeline's Weather Watch. And Adeline is the youngest person we've ever had on. I think she was she 13, 14 when we had her on? Her dad brought her up to our old studio on Broad Street and sat with us and got to record. That was a lot of fun. Told us that the thing to do in a storm in your car is not to run under an overpass. Don't do that. It's dangerous. But I think about the stuff that I hope you guys learn things, but I think about the stuff that I learn.
You know what? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm like, hold up. Out of 200 episodes, I've done quite a few funny intros. That may be my favorite intro I made you do because that was a whole weather report.
Oh, that's right. You put me in the studio and we threw it over to
weather report with you.
Yeah. Put me on. There was a green screen, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
So much fun. That was cool. So if you guys are just listening, audio only, you might miss some of that. But Tango's a talented dude in terms of our intros and things like that. So think about watching us on Rumble or YouTube or wherever, or just keep listening. I don't care where you pick it up, but it's everywhere. Wherever you find your podcast, if you're watching this or if you're just listening, then you can dial it up in one of those two places. But just the stuff that I've learned that like hypnotism is not this weird demonic thing. And we know that because we had Dr. Shane Clements on, who is a hypnotherapist, but he's also a preacher and a good one and a sound biblical one. He's not just some Looney Tune out there handling snakes or whatever. Like, he's a solid dude. But then, we've had other preachers and pastors on. We've had Vince Carr and we've had Trip Durden. Craig McClure was a fantastic episode, and I feel like we shortchanged Craig by not having a 6-hour episode.
Yeah.
I think that dude could have just gone forever.
Another good one, David Ogden.
Yeah. David's been
in the Himalayas.
Yeah, he's missionary to India, which is just crazy. We had Candy. So Candy Hyde's episode, you remember this one? Candy showed up. She's going on a mission in Mexico.
Yes.
And she shows up with 2 more people. She brought Steve and Carol Weisenberg with her, and we had to rearrange the whole studio and because they had awesome stories to tell too, and I didn't want to leave them out. So just fantastic stuff. And, what are we doing on this mission to Mexico? And I need to get Steve back on and talk about Sleep in Heavenly Peace, his local ministry.
Yes, we do. Adam Colston was the first episode I was a part of.
Adam was the first episode that you were a part of, and it was the first video episode we had. Well, that's not entirely true either. It was the first good video episode we had because I did, it must have been episode like 7, 8. Like there was a few in there that we did on a Chromebook.
Yep.
Like rear camera on a Chromebook or whatever, and they were awful.
But what always makes me happy looking back at the start at like 105, you see we start with this teeny tiny little
the table
quarter of a table, and it's you two with like clip-on mic stands, and thank goodness we have upped production and just built more and more onto it. And then we went to a plastic folding table for a while, and then we acquired a really nice table that we still have.
Yeah, it's right here. It's beautiful. It's fantastic.
That's a lot larger. We went from
it's our Mike Tyson table.
Yeah, we went from, I think we've went through like 3 or 4 iterations of microphones and stands. Couple of different camera lenses. Kept all the same audio interface. We did add the headphones.
We did add headphones, which is a huge game changer. I always watch these guys like Rogan and Jocko and these guys that do these podcasts, and they wear headphones. I think, well, why would you wear headphones? That seems like it'd be a huge distraction. But what it does is keep me I had the worst microphone awareness.
Yep.
So there are a lot of old episodes of me talking into the side of the microphone or leaning back too far or being too close. And now I wear these headphones and I can kind of monitor my volume and the guest or Tangos or whoever. Real game changer, though. I think it added quality to the production.
So here's a better question, I guess, as we get into it, is what do the next 200 episodes look like? What do you do from here? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to talk to? Where are because there's always got to be goals, right? So,
right.
So what are the next milestones we're looking for?
So, and we kind of talked about this earlier. We were going to take this direction one of two ways, and one way was that I was just going to dig up a topic, and we were going to talk about it like it was just any old episode. And then this, where we're talking about the significance to us, at least, of doing 200 episodes and what a big deal it is. The average podcast lasts 8 episodes. And we've made it past that, and I feel like that's an accomplishment. And it's not, obviously we've stuck with it, but it was, I think, the inspiration from God to do this thing. And because we've always just wanted it to be a positive thing, and I've always felt like it was him that was pushing me to do it anyway. But 200 is a big deal. But what we got into was going, well, we want this to be a huge thing. This 200's got to be gigantic. Well, then what do you do next?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I didn't want to bring in, dancing elephants and, white tigers and whatever, fire-breathing unicorns, and just for the sake of putting on a good show, because then what do I do for 201? Well, I got to do something crazier than that, right? So while I'm super excited that we've made it to 200, I didn't want to blow this thing up so much. Like when we get to 500 or 1,000 or we get to 10 million subscribers or whatever, like maybe we do some Mr. Beast. We don't do any Mr. Beast stuff.
Oh, get a white tiger. There we go.
No, white tiger. Turns out you can get one for like $300. We're not doing that. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like 200 is a big deal, but I didn't want it to be a circus either, because then you got to keep doing the circus, and I don't have the energy for that. But I don't know. It's just been cool, and to think about the people that I've talked to, and there's a difference, right? Because I've only met a couple of people, and I think about like Shane Clements. The first conversation he and I ever had was on a podcast. I had never really talked to him before. I'd met Edgar Mills, but he and I had never like had a conversation either. But there are a few of those where I got to meet people in this setting. But then there's also people that I've had a bunch of folks on that I've just known forever. And it's interesting to watch these people when the light comes on and when the numbers turn red and the things that we always talk about when we start an episode, and how people change from just hanging out to knowing they're being recorded, and they sit up a little straighter, or they're a little more articulate, they enunciate a little better, or maybe a little worse because it makes them nervous, or they squirm in their chair, whatever it is. But then you've got like the PJ Brooms of the world,
who are always camera ready,
the
always
same
ready
guy,
to go. Like,
the same guy all the time.
Change.
Yeah, the same dude all the time. PJ, this is one of my future goals. I've had PJ on, and I think that, well, that's not 100% true. I was going to say it would be the first like multi-generational deal, because I'm trying to get PJ's dad on, Phil Broom. Phil was a absolute phenomenal bareback rider back in the day, a champion, like world champion rider of the year. I don't know how many accolades, but he was a cowboy, a genuine cowboy, and a fantastic storyteller. And I want to get him on. And I was thinking he was the first multi-generational like group that I was going to have on, like a father and son. But my wife's been on. Jessica's been on 2 episodes, and then Ayla was on an episode.
Oh.
So yeah, and then I interviewed my own dad at one point. So I myself was part of that.
Yeah.
And then I interviewed my daughter. So, there's not a ton, I guess. I did have Annie Hamilton now and her son, AJ Cardamone, on the same episode.
Yep.
To talk about their, what's the thing called?
Shine Festival.
The Shine Fest. Yeah, the Shine Show.
Yep. That
which is an annual thing they do. It's a music festival concert thing they do downtown in Rome, Georgia. AJ, aka Jay, they put on a show every year. So we had those guys on at the same episode. And then Jay was on one episode himself before that.
Yep. That would be the 3rd rapper. Because we had Vince Carr.
We had Vince, the rapper / preacher. Yeah. Vince is a multifaceted dude.
We've had
Matthew Corey.
Yeah.
What other had another musician on?
I'm sure we've had a couple other musicians.
Probably, yeah.
It always goes back to my head. Kip Buford is a semi-indie wrestler also.
Yeah.
Completely shocked at his first day, and he went out there to be babyface, and he got booed, and I was like, oh, this is not it.
No, you got to be a heel. People love to heel these days in wrestling.
Oh man, we've had a couple of cool ones. That was good. Man.
You drawing blank now? Put you on the spot? You put yourself on the spot. You did this to yourself.
I did. I created this for myself. I created my own mess.
Yeah.
No. So, I mean, those are kind of the cool things you're looking forward to.
Yeah. I want to do this more consistently. You know, last year consistency was a struggle. This year has been different. We've been more intentional and we've already done more episodes this year than we did last year, and it's April the 27th, I think, right now.
Holy moly.
Is it the 27th? Where are we? 26th, not even the 27th yet. As we're filming this, you guys won't see it for another week or so, but yeah, it's we've been much more intentional this year. Last year just didn't work out. But if you look back, you go way back, and there are breaks here and there, especially in 2021. I filmed or recorded, this was way back audio only days. I recorded an episode on what I think was May the 13th, and then I didn't do another one until October. And that was episode 90. And that was maybe my favorite and least favorite episode at the same time, because I recorded that one episode in May, and then first week of June of 21, we lost our son, Joseph. And so I didn't record for close to 6 months. And then episode 90 I did in October of that year, where I kind of told his story. I guess eulogized him, so to speak. But so I got to talk about him. So go back and listen to that. He was an awesome kid, and I told a pretty cool story about him, I think. Felt good about it. It was one of my favorites, because I got to kind of share him with the world, because he's not here to leave a legacy in terms of his kids and his grandkids and things like that. So when we think about podcasting, we record it and you guys hear it no less than, 5, 6, 7 days later, but then it might be 5 years from now that you're listening to this, or 10 or 50 or however long the internet lasts. We say things and we put them out because we feel like they're important, and then they're out there forever. And that's the thing that really makes me stop and think, well, how important is this, what we're doing? And I don't know. There are times when I take that for granted, but we're kind of circling back around to what I was talking about earlier. But we just want to make them all count. So going forward, I guess that's the goal, because there have been a few that I didn't think were the best, but I don't want to waste anybody's time going forward. And whether that means some fantastic guest or some topic, or just being more consistent in what we're doing, and maybe we're doing 2 episodes a week, or whatever it is, just making this better. And I know we've come a long way, because I listened to episode 2 the other day, and it was rough. It was so bad, and I felt like we had solid equipment. We were in a recording studio at a local college, me and my brother Drew, and we felt like we were knocking it out, man. And it was a compelling story. Like, it was solid. We just weren't great podcasters. Whether or not I'm great now that's a matter of debate too, but I feel like I'm exponentially better than I was then, because I felt like I was trying to sound like somebody else. I think I've found like my voice in this, and I can sit here and just be me, and I don't have to be like, well, I'm trying to sound like Jocko Willink or Larry Elder on the radio or whoever, but I listen to people and I kind of study them, and I go, I like the way that he said that, or his cadence when he speaks or whatever. But I feel like I've kind of come into my own as far as that goes.
You had to develop the Burnham podcast and figure out where it goes, how it flows, how you lead it, because if you lead it the same way Rogan leads, it's just another Rogan clone.
Right.
You got to make it stand out. I feel like you've done a pretty dang good job at that.
Thank you. Well, and it's, I have stolen some formulas, and I've talked about this before, and I think Rogan's got a great formula. I think you get an interesting person on there and you just prompt them a little bit of here and there, and they tell their story, and the truth is stranger than fiction, they say a lot of times.
Is there, I don't want to say any particular person, but are there certain people you want to talk to in like certain professions or something? Like who would you like to sit across the table from at some point?
Who would I like to? Man, I would love to have Jeff Struecker in here. That'd be fantastic. If you've ever seen the movie Black Hawk Down or read the book, he was a key character in that. He's a pastor now down in Columbus, Georgia. It probably won't happen, and I'm not like, hey, Jeff Struecker, you got to get on my show. Jeff's way more big time than us. I just think it'd be cool. I don't know, man. I want to do cool stuff. Maybe like an actual brain surgeon, I think would be fun.
Okay.
An astronaut, like somebody at that level.
I think a really good one for both of us that would absolutely make us kind of fangirl is someone who's raced the Isle of Man TT.
Oh.
Somebody who's ran TT.
Yeah.
And lived to tell the tale.
So
that's something that last year we got absolutely.
We were enamored, which is coming up, right? It's not going to be the June, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Isle of Man TT it's the tourist trophy, and it's a race they have in the Isle of Man. But it's a 32-mile course. And it's just dudes on motorcycles. Like it's the tourist trophy. It's not like professional motorcycle racers.
It is anybody and everybody who can run it.
Yeah. And these guys are out going, 200 miles an hour on street bikes.
On surface streets.
On surface street, right? And they got to be at work on Monday. It's not like they're risking their life out there. I don't know what the prize is. But yeah, people who've done things, like accomplished things, and you think of somebody like an Isle of Man racer. We had Don Jenkins on. Don Jenkins is a championship race car driver, local legend, as far as that goes. Told some wild stories.
Yes, he
Don
did.
was a great episode. I got to get Don back on. But Don was arrested one time for driving his late model race car down the highway, which is, I'm not going to tell you. Go back and listen to the episode. But I'm just a great godly man now, not a hillbilly like that anymore. And John's still a little bit of a hillbilly, but he's not an idiot. He's grown past that. He found Jesus. But yeah, people who've accomplished things. Maybe somebody that's climbed Everest, or jumped out of 500 airplanes, or like I said, astronauts or brain surgeons, or somebody. What I want is somebody that can challenge me in a conversation. Not that like they're going to come in here and argue with me or outsmart me or anything, but somebody that will push me to be a better conversationalist, to bring their story out of them. And not that, if they tell their story, like it's going to be great anyway. But
so I think this is a great point where like the comment section can be like, hey, maybe they can find us some people. Fun fact, we do travel. We do. Went to on site for a podcast.
We've packed it up and gone before, and it is incredibly difficult. But for the right guest and the right scenario, we would absolutely do that.
Absolutely, to find something.
Yeah. If you're in the comments, hit us up. You got somebody you want us to talk to, especially if it's somebody that you can help us arrange, or maybe you're somebody that's interesting, have a cool story.
There we go. We want to hear your cool stories.
Yeah.
That's
the story of people, as it were. Like that's kind of when I started bringing guests in. That was the idea, just to tell people a story. Like I think about Sam Traylor. I had Sam on just before, he was like episode 103 or 4, like right in that neighborhood, just before we started doing video. And Sam's a young guy, and he hasn't been too many places, especially then. He's come a long way now because that was been 3 years ago or so. But hadn't done a ton of things, hadn't been a ton of places, but he had a unique perspective that I had never heard from a guest before. So sometimes it's just that, and Sam's a great dude. He's saving lives at the hospital as we speak. Purple belt in jiu-jitsu, good fella. So I don't think we've had any guests on that didn't bring some kind of value, but I don't know. I want to bring people in who can really like push me in conversation and force me to think in different ways and things like that. And that's got to be the folks that I'm interested in, I feel like do that on some level, which is, why I'm interested in talking to them. But, some different level, not even different level, just outside of the box and what I'm used to. And like I do martial arts, and I've played sports, and I've coached sports, and I've shot guns, and I've done, driven fast and done things, and I can relate to different people. Somebody that I'm going to have to bend myself to relate to, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
So we want new challenges.
Yeah. Which is, really, like it's funny to say that I'm learning from a guy that's 16 years younger than me, but talked about PJ Broom a minute ago. His favorite thing in the world to do is incredibly difficult things with his friends, right? So that's what I'm learning now. I was like, let's do some hard stuff. Like I do jiu-jitsu, and that's tough, but like everybody does jiu-jitsu. Not everybody has the opportunity to sit down and talk to all these different people and absorb all this information and relay it. And you think about, a podcast host, and I've talked to 59 people, so I ought to be able to sit around and dominate trivia, right? Except that I've never had a rocket scientist on to explain rocket science, in real time. Maybe we do something like that. But just that challenge.
So what I'm hearing is maybe we do jiu-jitsu, chess, and a podcast all in one, where you do
Magnus Carlsen, if you're out there.
You do all of it.
Yeah.
Magnus would be cool.
Magnus would be cool. Does he speak English? I don't know enough about him.
We can translate.
We can make it
subtitle it. AI subtitles.
Yeah, well, AI that bad boy. Yeah, it's just to have folks in. I maybe some more people that I don't know. Just baseline, like meeting people at a podcast for the first time. That's always interesting because you just never know. Because I message people one way or another. I email them or hit them up on social media or whatever, and we have a little conversation where we set up the meeting to do the podcast and things like that. And so there's that. But to actually sit down and talk to somebody is a whole different thing. Like, what do you say when you get somebody there? And the thing that guests always ask is, "What are we going to talk about?" And I say, "Well, we're going to talk about you." I'm not going to ask you any questions that you don't already know the answer to, because we're just going to talk about you. So, whatever your story is, that's what I want to hear. And if it's that you were in the Army and you went overseas and did X, Y, and Z, or if you drove a motorcycle 300 miles an hour, we'll talk about that. Faith is a big deal. I always want to hear about your faith. That's the driving thing behind the show. And we don't always talk about that. Like, there have been episodes when, faith didn't come. I don't know, not many where faith didn't come up at all, but I guess there's probably been a couple. But just, the story. Like, what's this person about? What do they know? What have they done? Where have they been? What are their goals? What do they want to do? We've talked to these artists and things, and not just musicians, but like Kayla Knowles, an actual like painter artist, and like what she wanted to do. And she started this ministry, and it's thriving. I saw she's selling T-shirts, Brush and Crown. But what was her thing? What did she want to do? Well, this is what she wanted to do, and she's doing it. And Sean Mullins was a good one. Remember Sean?
Yep.
Sean
those two followed each other up.
They were right in the same ballpark, weren't they? Sean was my blind friend, and he came in and talked about his challenges and his struggles, and the stuff that dude accomplishes on a daily basis is just incredible. You think about, being down a sense and doing all this stuff anyway, and going to school and having a job and navigating life in more ways than one, but he's out there doing it. And I felt like that was a really cool story too. But yeah, I don't know. I'd never thought about, not that I didn't think we'd get to 200, but I never was like, I hope we get to 200. And now I'm kind of, you're asking, what about the next 200? Well, I don't know. What about the next 500, the next 1,000? How many times are we going to, you look at some of these shows that have been around for years and years, and they're on episode 3795. And like, I try to wrap my brain around that. And, we're probably off the compound by then. We've got I don't know, maybe we got a traveling road show or whatever it is. And what's it going to look like? And in terms of tech and things like that, and the way things upgrade, and the way the world moves and information is transferred and relayed these days. And we just hope to be part of that while, I don't know, maintaining some semblance of normalcy. Normalcy is not the way. I don't know. This is a classic form of communication, I guess. Even though it's sort of modernized because we're talking into microphones and broadcasting out, which is just insane, right? Because when I was in high school, I took this class where we got to record ourselves in a radio lab. And then the next year we did it in a video lab, and the videos got sent out to the whole school, and we did the announcements, on video. And that's kind of how I got into this to begin with. But in the 1990s, we were just hoping to grow up and get on the radio. And then I go to college for journalism, and I'm learning how to lay out a newspaper page that nobody looks at anymore. And I could get on the radio, I guess, but why would I do that? Because the bubble's only as far as your tower will reach. Well, we look at, the different places that Burnham Podcast has been, and I'm talking Rome, Georgia, or, Orlando, Florida, or China and Iran, and the metrics that we see, and we've been in all 50 states, 30, 40, I don't know how many, 45 countries I think we're into now. Just, it's crazy to me to think that there's somebody in Finland that listens to Burnham Podcast, much less Iran or China or somewhere you can get killed for listening to somebody talk about Jesus, or at least in some pretty serious trouble. But, there's not really any limits, which is just crazy. And we don't have 1 million subscribers and, 1 million watch hours and things like that. But, I guess those things come with time, because in the grand scheme of things, 200 episodes, and the way that we've evolved in the last 95 episodes specifically, like we're just now kind of hitting a stride in terms of this is the way that we do the podcast and the improvements that we could possibly make, which is just, it's super cool to think about where this could go and what it could be. And maybe 8 years from now, I'll be a hologram sitting here. I'm not going to be a hologram. That's dumb. But, trying to keep up with things, because the attention span now is as long as a YouTube short or an Instagram reel. But getting folks on or covering topics that keep your attention past that 6 or 8 or 30 seconds or whatever it is. And so that's sort of a goal, to be able to do that and to still have something to offer as opposed to just filling time. Tango's scrolling his phone right now. I try to think of some cool things to say about what we've done.
I'm looking back at all of our episodes, and I see the switch I made from when we just let videos create their own thumbnail to where I actually started. Our first one was with James Manning. That was the cutoff and the start point for me actually having to create thumbnails.
127.
So now I'm looking and I'm like, I've done a lot of thumbnails at this point. Holy moly.
Yeah.
And I just hit the second James Manning one, and I'm like, oh yeah, it started as just a red background, and I was like, okay, we'll just do Burnham Podcast. Whatever.
Yeah.
And now it's a whole I spend a lot of time on some of these thumbnails, and I'm like, how do I get these? What pictures do we want? We were talking before the show, what does the thumbnail look for this? So we were slowly building it. There have been some really, really cool thumbnails and some really lame ones. There was a really cool one recently. Actually, the past 3 have been pretty cool. Past 4, I lied.
Your thumbnail game has reached new heights.
Better.
It has.
It's getting better.
Well, but it all does. It all improves, or hopefully it does.
It does. It does. I think on my side, I want to see us go to some new locations. Maybe film in a new place. Maybe a couple of new locations.
Yeah.
Maybe with a ruckus. I don't know. Maybe something different.
Well, I mean, since 105, man, for the first 105 episodes, we filmed where we could find a quiet place to do it. And I say filmed, recorded, because we weren't video then, but I have recorded in every room in my house depending on what room my kids were destroying at the time. We've got a little camper, and I've recorded a bunch of episodes in there. When my brother Drew was working at Shore University, we recorded in half a dozen places up there.
Yep.
Since you came on and we started doing video at 105, we were in our church downtown.
Yep.
And then there was the next studio that we moved out of after that, and now we're here on the compound.
Yep. Then we've bounced around a couple of times. I think even in the old studio on Broad, there were a couple of different layouts we tried.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, we go back to the little table. We started there with the brick wall, and then at some point we had a giant stage behind us with lights, and there was a heckin' lot going on in that studio. That one was cool.
Yeah, we used that one a bunch of different ways.
Yep, that was a very multi-purpose state.
Yeah.
I think going forward over the next 200 or however many, you're going to start seeing new ideas kind of creep in, and new in general, maybe some experimental things.
Yeah.
I think that's where we go from here, is we get a little more experimental with it. 200, yes. To us, it's like, okay, it's another day, but there's a good point here that says, okay, we've survived past the 8 episodes.
Right.
We've survived past the 16 episodes, the next 36, the next 64.
Yeah.
So now we're at 200 plus technically, and we're like, okay, well, what do we do? And it's not necessarily up in the ante, but it's like, okay, where can we get better? What can we do better?
Well, and it's not a matter of generating a circus, right? So you guys will keep watching. We don't want to do that. I don't want this to be like, we made it, we're here, it's 200. But I mean, mile markers are there for a reason. You know, when you're traveling down the highway and you know how far you've come.
And that's kind of how we're looking at this. This is a mile marker of 200. We can do what we need to do, but we're going to keep on trucking down. Good old Smokey and the Bandit style.
Yeah.
Come
load
on,
it up and take it with
go.
us, man. Well, that's the cool part, right? Is that, we talked about we want to do some live stuff, but it doesn't have to be live. Live would be, we could do it from the compound where we are now. Like, we can do it. It's tough. It would be really tough to do it somewhere else live, like on location. But because it's not live, we could do it literally anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. That's a challenge, right? Whether it's somebody we've talked to before or not, to go out and record in maybe less than favorable conditions, or in a suite where the light's shining in and it's tough to see us. But there's multiple challenges on multiple fronts that will cause us to, raise our games and do this better. So, that's kind of the goal, just to see where to go, not to create a circus, I guess, but just to improve on what it is that we're doing. Maybe adding another camera or two, or, getting Tango on more often, or whatever it is, but just making it happen, and create. I know I picked this thing up after I said I wasn't going to fidget with it, but just creating a better quality episode. I know it's tough for you guys to just sit here and stare at me for an entire episode with no cuts or anything. Yeah. God bless you.
I promise you, I want to do better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a funding thing too, right? Like, if you want extra cameras, you got to buy more cameras. So that's tough. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but we're not rich and famous because we have this podcast. It's not how it works. There are folks that are. We ain't one of them. But maybe one of these days, if you tell your friends about the show, share the show with everyone you know, all that good stuff. But where do we go from here? And that's the question that we're asking as we sit in our studio tonight. But it's a question you could ask yourself. We talked about challenges a couple episodes back. Like, what do you do to push yourself? How do you challenge yourself? Maybe it's to start a podcast. You can do it. It's easy. We do it all the time. You've got stuff to say. Maybe you don't want to have a podcast forever. Maybe you want to do 5 episodes of your own podcast because you just have a few things to say. Do that. Maybe you want to be on somebody else's podcast. Reach out. Hit us up. maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'll see. Depends on whether or not you're somebody I'm interested in talking to. But you can do it. It just ain't that hard. It's hard to do it well, I guess, and we hope we do it well. But I said doo-doo. But it's but you can do it. Or maybe podcast is not your thing, but some other challenge is. So that's the inspiration there, right? But yeah, there we go. We've been at this almost an hour now. Holy smokes. Landing the plane. Tango's giving me the sign to land the plane. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to land the plane. It's going to be our next challenge. I've worked really hard on landing the plane at the end of an episode because I talk around and I'm doing it right now. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. Man, it's been fun. Thank you guys so much for, if you're still here watching it 50 minutes in or listening, thank you. I never take you for granted. I obsess over the metrics of every episode. So I know that people are out there watching and listening, and we're so grateful for that. But that's it. We're done. We're getting out of here. I need you to understand Christ is King, and we're going to keep on keeping on. God bless you guys. We love you. See you next time.